Fun transition from traditional ink drawings to our cartoon realism? Yeah, it's pretty real for 1998. Man, look at those 2D heat waves slightly distorting the soldier's face.
Now all of China knows you're here.
Perfect.
That's a pretty badass bad guy response if I do say so myself.
You'll set up defenses around your palace immediately.
Send your troops to protect my people.
And that's a good leader, like a potential future self-sacrifice.
A single grain of rice can tip the scale.
So we've got Takagi talking to Miyagi, who are both Japanese, but at least there's one actor of Chinese descent in the room, Poe's dad, Mr. Ping.
One man may be the difference between victory and defeat.
Or one, whoa, yeah.
Can you help me with my chores today?
Helpfulness. Such perfectly timed comedy.
Matchmaker is not a patient woman.
This first act does a great job of setting off Mulan as a character who doesn't fit in. She's late, she can't remember the admonition, most likely because it's not something that she cares about. She isn't all that conscientious about her chores. Maybe she just needs a little strength and discipline. She prefers riding a horse to walking prim and proper. She doesn't even like her hair to be in this conformist style. This isn't her.
When we're through, boys will gladly go to war for you.
It's true, they have their own song about it. And she even shows her knack for strategy. Whoa, where did she go? I assume she slipped out through the curtain, but it looks like she disappeared behind Mulan. I love how over the top the gender roles are here. It's not even by bearing children, it's by bearing sons. Who's gonna bear all your sons if they only bear sons, ancient China? Huh? Between the goatee, the cricket bath, the hot coals seat, and Grandma's commentary.
I think it's going well.
I'm just gonna throw a few wins up there.
You will never bring your family honor.
Haha, but you didn't define what kind of honor, so we'll see about that. I actually like how often this idea is brought up since it pays off so completely by the end. There's the obvious split that Mulan is dealing with, you know, the one the rest of this movie is about. But the other one that I think we miss sometimes is that Mulan wants to make her father proud, and no matter how hard she tries, she can't be the person she thinks her father needs her to be.
This one's late. When it blooms, it will be the most beautiful.
Well, there's an on-the-nose metaphor for you. It's cute that her father just assumes she's a late bloomer rather than really doesn't connect with the identity chosen for her by her family and culture. Sincerely, we all work within the confines of what we know, so at this moment, this was the furthest his acceptance could go for Mulan. And I gotta give Papa Fazzo an honor win. It's not always the easiest thing for Americans to understand, but it was a huge part of Chinese culture. Mulan isn't the only one torn between two worlds. He wants to honor his culture, but also doesn't really care if his daughter doesn't fit in perfectly.
I know my place. It is time you learned yours.
She's trying, yo. Never realized that even though it was meant as a reprimand, she actually takes him up on it. I know, you know this song, it fits just fine, but just for a second, pretend this is the first time you're seeing this and try to explain why an 80s synth ballad just started. No one is gonna complain, obviously. Man, another quick face split.
Anybody who's foolish enough to threaten our family, vengeance will be mine!
I guess it doesn't make much sense to complain about Japanese voice actors when the noble spirit dragon is from Brooklyn.
Traditional values will disintegrate.
Where have I heard that before? Right, everywhere, throughout time, forever. Chinese? Gothic? Even the farmhouse behind them.
We will be sending a real dragon to retrieve Mulan.
So Mulan isn't the only one trying to let her true self out. Wait, did I already do that?
Little brother!
So someone should do a study about named animal sidekick characters in Disney movies that show up for the first act, disappear for the movie, and then return at the end? Moana's pig Pua, Wally's cockroach. Okay, so maybe he isn't named, but also Mulan's dog, little brother. And they're always replaced with other side characters. Pua with Hey Hey, the roach with... Okay, again, not a perfect comparison, but let's say Mo.
And now little brother with Cricky and Mushu.
Technically, a boo isn't a monkey for lots of Aladdin, you get the point.
How about if I pop one of your antennas off and throw it across the yard?
Nice work, gentlemen. You found the Hun army.
Tyrant ruler Hun jokes.
How many men does it take to deliver a message? One.
Oof, that's a murder joke. Pretty savage, chilling, brutal, honestly. Well done, Cricky.
Dishonor on you? Dishonor on your cow?
He is a big boy. You'd be forgiven for thinking he was a cow. The filmmakers said they were specifically going off the artistic depiction from the Tang Dynasty.
This tattoo will protect me from harm.
They actually aren't disproving the protection from the spirits, since we know that Mushu is already busy right now. Of course, the guy who, when singing about women, actually sings about food, would have tofu in his Serenity chant.
Soldiers!
One last punch.
I've got a name. And it's a boy's name, too.
Specificity.
He doesn't talk about me much.
I can see why. The boy's an absolute lunatic.
Astute observations. Being on the outside of the horses and pigs away from the rest of the camp is a good way to show Mulan's separation.
Porridge! And it's happy to see you.
You could probably use some Szechuan sauce. So it's not BD Wong's workout routine, even though it's his voice. Shang's workout routine? There are only 4 songs in this movie, and this is still one of the best Disney pieces of all time. It doesn't just progress the story forward through a training montage, as well as dropping more on the nose winks about gender and the irony that it's a daughter who's going to save all your butts. But Donny Osmond sings for Shang, and the song slaps.
Represents discipline. And this represents strength.
I love that they specifically needed to use both discipline and strength together by tying the weights together to achieve the goal / climb the pole.
You need both to reach the arrow.
And a training montage sets that this catchy tune is the fastest way to learn to enjoy getting kicked in the face. It's also the fastest way to a slow-mo kick crescendo to your song. I mean, really though, this montage and song are fantastic. They really get you to believe that time has passed and that they are fully trained warriors and friends by the end, not least of which is helped by the oversaturation and stylization of this final shot. It almost makes you forgive the war propaganda.
White horsehair, imperial stallions.
Sulfur from cannons.
The timeline and history of China and Huns is all a little loosey-goosey, which is fine for a kid's movie. But I appreciate that the villains aren't completely one-dimensional. They're skilled trackers with attuned senses.
Let's start over. Hi, I'm Ling.
Feels like as good a time as any to point out that Ling is voiced by foreign exchange student Long Duck Dong. Chifu has a fanboy painting. And Cricky makes typewriter noises with his feet.
What's the matter? You've never seen a black and white before?
It's such a weird way to put it. Does Mushu not know what a panda is, or is he trying to pretend like there's an entire unit that uses pandas called the black and white? Wait, did China have a unit that uses pandas called the black and white? Panda's gonna do what a panda's gonna do. The calendar sequence shows us a different, fun animation style in the middle of the movie.
It all depends on what she cooks like.
And leave it to Qian Po to be the least problematic of the bunch, although only by a tiny sliver. To be fair, it makes sense and is deliberate. Mulan's journey is towards realizing her true self, and her comrade's journey is learning women are for more than just looking pretty, worshipping your muscles, and cooking your dinner.
Beef, pork, chicken.
I could probably use some Szechuan sauce.
How about a girl who's got a brain? Who always speaks her mind?
That's like 1st or 2nd century feminism?
I'm a girl back home who's unlike any other.
She's from a different dynasty, you wouldn't know her.
What do we want?
A girl worth fighting for.
And ironically, you've already found one. You just don't know it. You know, because soldiers fight for each other. And she's about to save all your lives of the things Ping wants in a woman.
A girl worth fighting.
That stark change from a happy-go-lucky song is super jarring, and then you realize the first thing they see is the doll, meaning now they have a girl worth fighting for in the truest sense of the word.
You just gave away our position! Now we're...
It's a short movie, so it shouldn't be surprising, but we go from marching along with songs to complete devastation, cut with a quick fireworks joke, and right into a crazy action set piece, with insane explosions. Yeah, see, I bet you finally have some sympathy for the orcs at the bottom of the hill standing off against Gandalf. These sweeping CG shots are amazing and finally expose the size of the Hun army, which has been pretty much hidden up until now. Well, now there's a beautiful shot ahead of its time.
Alright, you might want to light that right about now.
Ha! She can't even do that part right. Or can she? Pulling on his tail worked out anyway. I don't know. Another gorgeous shot where the avalanche fills the entire frame behind Shan Yu. That's pretty brutal if you know what actually happens in avalanches. Hint, it's not this. Door surfing! You know, this goes back to iRobot. Who's been here since 2016 in iRobot? Saving your cricket buddy. Teamwork. Even if you really only need the team leader, who's got to weigh over 3,000 pounds to counterweight all this. Fun fact, apparently that's an ancient Chinese symbol that means doctor. The clouds behind Shang are bright pink. To quote a famous elf, actually just let him do it.
The red sun rises. Blood has been spilled this night.
But once Shang decides to spare Mulan, the pink goes away and it becomes dusk.
What? What do you mean you're not lucky?
Honesty from Cricky. Shredder's alive. Wait, we don't want him alive. And actually, if that yell woke his main entourage up, he's more of a Night King. Look at that stunning city. Whoa, blending in with the dragon statues. I love that you can probably predict something is off about the dragon, how it doesn't stop moving, even Shang glances over his shoulder, and then it's just a little too close in subsequent shots. It even kind of moves like a Ghibli monster. They try to trick us into thinking they're giving her armor so she can fight, when in reality, in this instance, dressing up as a woman is the one thing they need to do to be by the song's standards. Messing with gender stereotypes again. And you thought that was just a character building exercise and not useful. Also, I like that Shang actually gets to see how Mulan did it. I was a little worried he didn't know she fully understood the message.
Now, that's what I call Mongolian barbecue.
I could probably use some Szechuan sauce. Hey, Ling got to use that block breaking technique. Look at that disarm.
No matter how the wind howls, the mountain cannot bow to it.
Ooh, imagine having a sword at your throat and getting all metaphorical. Amp don't give a brutal brawler. Ooh, that's a potential self-sacrifice. I like that even though Mulan has trained and is much stronger than ever before, Shan Yu's sword is still a little too heavy for her. Doesn't make her look weak so much as make him seem like even more of a beast. I mean, really, not everyone can cut 18-inch pillars in one swing. So, Shan Yu has no whites of his eyes?
Who are you?
Hey, it's the directors.
Your worst nightmare.
Aw, Mushu finally got to look on the outside how he feels on the inside. Cricky too.
Not quite.
Okay, so maybe she had a surge of adrenaline? I really thought she was struggling before, but how about that? Disarms him with her femininity. Also, badass good girl. Comeuppance.
Stand aside! That creature's not worth protecting.
We're sure Shan Yu was the villain. This goes beyond misogyny, although it makes me not feel bad about his job loss.
You can have his job.
Mountains may not bow to the wind, but they sometimes bow to the, I don't know, rain? Is Mulan like the rain in this analogy? Like she's erosion? Hugging. Maybe not historically accurate, but that's kind of the point.
You fight good.
Compliments.
The flower that blooms in adversity is the most rare and beautiful of all. You don't meet a girl like that every dynasty.
Interpretation win. Miyagi always knows the best lessons. Wax on, wax off. There's only one Elizabeth Shue. Hey, she must have bloomed.
They're gifts to honor the Fa family.
Well, this is one of those times that only listening to this movie while your kid watches it leads you to miss some stuff. Mulan's fear was disappointing her father and dishonoring him, so presenting these gifts that are the highest forms of honor show why she did what she did. And a father in return showing that he cares more for his daughter's safety and love than two of the most important gifts anyone can possibly be given? That'll get you.
The greatest gift and honor is having you for a daughter.
Great. She brings home a sword. If you ask me, she should have brought home a man.
You had to get one last gender stereotype in there. Yeah, I'll give you that one, 90s Disney.
Would you like to stay for dinner?
Would you like to stay forever?
Oh, Granny. I didn't notice the underwater look to the ancestor's hair earlier.
You can be a guardian again.
And a happy ending for everybody. What? Xtina and 98 degrees?
Mulan is a big bottle.
Mulan was Jude's favorite for a good 6 months, I'd say. So like I said, while I mostly ended up listening to it more than watching it, I feel like I've seen it a million times. Mulan was often requested by name. So if nothing else, I got my fair share of the music into my brain. Which I honestly have no complaints about. 4 songs and I don't even mind Honor to Us All stuck in my head. And other than the show tunes, the score has some really great moments. And the voice acting is fantastic, especially Miguel Ferrer as Shan Yu. Every line from him cuts through time and space and settles into your soul.
Send his strongest armies. I'm ready. How many men does it take to deliver a message?
Also, I'd be remiss if I forgot Sulu as the first ancestor, George Takei himself. Before I get into themes and whatnot, I just have to point out these few scenes showing evidence of filmmakers loving what they do. The lighting, the framing, each one is so gorgeous. You can tell that a lot of love was put into this movie. So, is Mulan the trans icon movie of the 90s? Well, other than the obvious one. I mean, it can be for you. That's sort of how I see it. You can't ignore the similarities in language, especially in the songs. The thing is, the majority of it all lands in the songs and ends up being more symbolic and open to interpretation. When you actually look at the text of the movie, you'd have a slightly better case for her being a crossdresser or liking drag, but really, she puts on a disguise not because she wanted to be a man or even because she necessarily enjoys men's clothes. It was to achieve a specific goal. So Mulan's songs can be trans representation, and the rest can be representation for girls who just don't like makeup and don't want to pour tea. Without the cultural limitations, Mulan would have signed up in her father's place as herself, and kicked butt as herself. Neither her gender identity nor expression really comes up. Now, did she smash gender stereotypes and make every man around her question their sexist outlooks on women? I don't know, maybe, hopefully? They are willing to listen to a woman by the end. But I also think Mulan's struggle can be simpler. In societies that require conformity, it's not uncommon for people to feel like they don't fit in. And I'm not talking about the PRC, I'm talking about American high schools. Just because you belong to a certain group doesn't mean that's all you are, or even who you see yourself as. Obviously, this movie speaks about gender roles and pokes some fun at the outdated misogyny of our ancient cultures. But I think it actually has more to say about masculinity than femininity. Everything is topsy-turvy. The way men are represented is deliberately over the top for comedic purposes, but also to showcase some of the silly stereotypes about men that even men believe. By far the strongest man in the entire army is Chen Po, and he's also the gentlest of them all. He exhibits what we consider some of the most feminine traits. The bathing scene, which again is played for comedic effect, pokes at male friendships and how interwoven competition can be in male platonic relationships. And obviously Mulan excels physically and otherwise in ways many of her male counterparts don't. The female traits she exhibits tend to boil down to thinking, but that's part of who she is. She doesn't follow the leader. She likes to do things her own way, which leads to her saving them all. But then merely because she concealed her biological sex, Chi Fu loses it. It's the type of thing that's meant to make you say, but come on, bro. If you'd found out and killed her earlier, you'd all be dead right now. How stuck in tradition can you be? Not to mention the guy who's really all about gender roles wouldn't generally be defined as very masculine, at least by their culture.
And I do not squeal like a girl.
It's not the most progressive film of all time, but for 1998, having a woman be the holder of her own destiny was a good start. She's not technically a princess, but that goes beyond just her bloodline. I think it's great to have Disney lead characters that aren't royalty and don't wear gowns and don't even have to have makeup on to be a woman. I think the story has a lot to say about what women can be, especially in oppressive societies. But again, Reflections can be your trans anthem because every word might be a question you've asked, full stop. Both, neither, be your true self, that's the point. I'm very curious to see where the remake goes with all these threads, and I'm glad I don't have to go to theaters to see it. Technically, I still have that 60-second review. It just didn't really make sense. Next week, a new-ish, kind of new, pretty newish one.
Wait, you forgot your sword!
Bye-bye, boys.
Have fun storming the castle.
Think it'll work?
Bye-bye.